Kakadosh Boker Or Masechet Chullin Daf Yomi Daf Yodalef Amud Aleph 11a1. Right? The Gemara is going to ask the following: Mena milta de'amu rabbanan zil bataruba. How do we know this concept that the rabbis always talk about, that we go after the majority? How do you know that? So says the Gemara, Minalal? From where do you know that? It's written in the pasuk in the Torah. The Bible says it. Acharei rabim la'atot. If the Torah says in Parashat Mishpatim, Acharei rabim la'atot, I don't need the get. Meaning, what are you asking? It's a Torah. It's a Chumash. Chumash says you go after the majority. So answers the Gemara, Ruba de'ita kaman. We're talking about a rov that is in front of us. For example, Teisha Chaniyot with Sanhedrin. You got 9 stores in the Sanhedrin. Lo kami baila. That is not the question. Right? Why? Because that's like the rov lefanenu in the reality. Right? So you got, for example, 9 stores, right, and that are kosher, and 1 store which is not kosher. Obviously, we go after the majority. Why? Because for sure it's going to kikami baila. When is the question? Ruba deleta kaman. When the rov is not in front of us. For example, a katana and a ktana. Right, this is talking about a Mishnah in Yevamot, where you have a ktana that falls in front of a yavam katan, right? That he's allowed to do yibum. Now we're not going to suspect that they're going to become saris or ilonit. Saris is a sterile man, and ilonit is a sterile woman. Okay, that they're not fitting to have children. So it comes out, right, that they're going to be pturim from the yibum, and then asurim zebazeh because of karet of eshetach. Why? Because we go after rov bnei adam, the majority of human beings. Now, even though we don't see this rov, because it's not in front of us, yes, right, yet, right, because basically in order to know the mitziyut, still we're going to rely upon the majority. Menala, and how do we know that? Meaning, if it's in front of us, like the case of the stores, it's right in front of your face. You count, there's 9 kosher stores, 1 9 kosher, go after the majority, right? But if you're going to tell me something which is not really here yet, I don't have it. They're both children. You're not going to find out that he's sterile until he's going to be much older. You're not going to find out that she's an ilonit until 20. Again, one more time. Until 20. Exactly. That's a rov. That's a rov. But that's a rov deleta kaman. It's not in front of us. Why? Because here you have the mitziyut. Meaning, I coming, I see one store, another, it's right in front of us. Meaning there's a rov, but it's right in front of us. That's called the ita kaman. That is the rov that the Torah was talking about. Here we're talking about a rov which is leta kaman. Leta kaman means it's not in front of, meaning there is a majority, but I don't have it here. I mean, like, I don't know what's so Minala. How do we know this? So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Atya mereisha shelolah. The cloud that we go after the majority comes from the beginning of the korban olah, because it says in a pasuk, v'nitach ota lintachea, ota lintachea, v'lo netachel lintachea. Meaning you're going to cut up the olah to its pieces, right? But not it to its pieces, which means you're not allowed to cut up the pieces to smaller pieces. Now, says the Gemara, v'nechu shema nikav krum shel moach. Maybe there was a hole in the krum shel moach, and it's a trefa. So how do you bring it? I'm going to ask you a question. You come and you do shechita. You cut it up. You're bringing it to the mizbeach. Maybe it's a trefa. So now, if it's that you could cut it to many different types of pieces, so you could actually see whether it's a trefa or not. But here, if only you could cut it to pieces, but you can't cut the pieces to pieces, so then maybe there's going to be a trefa somewhere, but you can't even see it because you can't cut it to smaller pieces. Elalav, but rather why? Because we go after the rov. Yeah? And therefore, since we're going to after the rov, the majority animals are not trefot. So therefore, because of that, even if it's going to be a rov which is not in front of us, right? He says because the teva of the animals is al pi rov, it's only meaning it's not in front of us that it's not. It's a teva of the animals that they're not. By the way, that's the reason why you're allowed to drink milk. Why are you allowed to drink milk? Maybe be'emet the animal was a trefa, right? Because the majority of animals are not trefot. I said there's a rov, okay? So says the Gemara, Mimai, who told you this? Dilma de palelo badakle. Maybe be'emet you open up the head and you check. The mishum. Now, if you're going to tell me that you're not allowed to cut it to pieces, the pieces, right? Only if you cut it completely. But maybe be'emet if you're just opening it up and it's still connected, so maybe be'emet there's no isur, right? So I can't bring a proof from olah. I wanted to bring a proof from the olah that you're allowed to do rov. That means we go after rov, even in rov deleta kaman, that it's not in front of us. Because the rov deleta kaman, I have a pasuk in the Torah. But Rov Deleta, come on, we learn from the Ola. So no, you can't bring a proof from the Ola. So says the Gemara, more better than Ravina Mar, Atya B'Shvirat Etzem Pesach. Fine, I've got another place. You're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to break the bones by the Korban Pesach. The Amar Rachmana, the pasuk says that's a notish bo. So says the Gemara, maybe there's a crucial moach. We go after the rov. What does that mean? You're not allowed to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Chinuch says that the reason for that mitzvah is because we didn't want that we should be like poor people. We have to show that we're rich people. So we don't break bones and start eating the bones. You understand? We don't do that. Okay? Do you know there was a famous machloket between Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Rav Moshe Feinstein? The machloket was, can I on Friday night open up the Chullin pot, right, and then close it again? So if it's fully cooked, then no problem. But what happens if you had the bones there, that the bones were not fully cooked? Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, mutar. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says it's asur. What was the machloket dependent upon? In Israel, they used to eat the bones. In America, nobody ate the bones. Since the not the marrow bone, or even regular bones, chicken bones, this bones, a whole bunch of bones. Because of that, right? They used to eat the bones. Because of that, Rav Moshe Feinstein, right? Rav Moshe Feinstein, yeah, they used to be yeah. So because of that, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, which one? Exactly. So therefore, the bones on Friday night, the bones of Friday night were not cooked enough. So therefore, if you would uncover it and then cover it again, you cause the quickening of cooking, right? And there's a problem. But if you're not going to come and you're not going to eat it at all, so therefore, the Moshe Feinstein held, since you're not eating it all, it's not called food bichlal. So what do I care now that it's going to come and it's going to cause quicker cooking of the bones? Yes. If you're not going to come and you're not going to eat that, that's not bishul. You understand? So that was the famous machloke between Rav Moshe Feinstein. I'm going to ask you a question, doctor. I'm going to come. So the fine, that's Isud Rabbanan, it's not Doraita. It's Mechashat Zechal Gufa. Yeah? But more than that, if I'm going to come and I'm going to take the hot cholent directly from the cholent pot and I throw it in the garbage, and in the garbage there was a piece of meat that wasn't cooked, and I cooked it, right? I'm not chayav Doraita. Right? I wasn't going to eat anything. That's called libud. Anything which goes libud, it's not doraita. There could be surim derabanan sometimes. Sometimes there could be a derabanan, this and that. But if it all goes to libud and all the many times, so Rav Moshe Feinstein held we don't eat bones. Yeah, so therefore, there's no problem. It all depends where they were from. So here he says we do not want. So he says, right? They don't want. So the reason why Korban Pesach they didn't want to see bones. We're kings on the night of Pesach. No eating the bones of Korban Pesach. So he says, maybe there's a trefa. So answers the Gemara, right? And therefore we go because of Rov. Says the Gemara, Mimai. Yeah. Mimai. Dilma demanach gumarta ale v'kalele ubadile. You're going to come, you're going to check it, but you're going to put a coal on it, and then you're going to check it. Tanya mchatech begidim v'asorov batzamot embo mishum shvirat etzem. And if you're going to burn the etzem, right, and that way you're going to check what's on the inside, that's not considered shvirat etzem. So there's no problem. So we're going to have to bring another mekor then. Rav Nachman Ritzak Amar atya me'aliyah. You're going to learn it from the tail. Tamar Rachmana, but the pasuk says chelbo aliyah temimah. Right, which means that it's tamima, which means you're not allowed to cut it. So says the Gemara, maybe it's going to be nifseka chuta shidra, and you're only going to find out later on. And but because we're going to come and we're going to say zilba taruba, go after the majority. And if you're going to tell me that it's going to be for the bottom, he's going to come and he's going to say shaklayot yotzot. He says it's chuta shidra, that is going to be that the klayot are going to be there, which means that it's also part of the aliyah. So it's part of the chuta shidra. So since it's part of the aliyah and you can't cut it, maybe it's going to be a trefa. So it's only because of the rov. So he says mimai, maybe dilma de patach lo badikla. Maybe you opened it up and you checked it. You need tamima. He says only if you cut it completely. But if only you just opened it up and it's still connected, there's no problem. Just like we said for the first one. So answers the Gemara. There's going to be another one. So one more time, we're just trying to find out where do we go after Ruba deleta kaman. Ruba deleta kaman means that there's not a rov in front of us. It's just the majority of the animals. But the animals are not in front of us. So therefore, one more time, we started with what? The Korban Olah. We pushed it off. Continue Shvirat Etzem. Pushed it off. Continue with the Aliyah. We pushed it off. Now we're going to the fourth one. What's the fourth one? Atya Megla Rufa. Tamar Nachmana, but the Torah teaches you Arufa. What is Egla Rufa? Keshish Lema Teve. Which means you're going to come and you're going to do the Egla Rufa, and then so you cut the nape from the back of the neck. So says the Gemara, maybe it's a trefa. We go after the majority. Now you're going to tell me, what do you care? Even if it is a trefa, what's the problem? Remember, you're not eating the glarufa, right? And you're cutting it on the back of the neck, the nape. So what do you care? He says, no. Since it's written that the glarufa is a kapara, it's like kochim. Just like kochim is a kapara, which means that you cannot have a trefa, so to the eglarufa cannot be a trefa, right? So therefore, right, the raya of Rav Sheshat is actually a good raya. Okay, so this one we kept it, meaning this could be a good proof that we go after the majority of the animals. Ruba deleta kaman. Another one, Rabba, but that means even though we didn't disprove it, we're going to bring down other Amoraim that they actually say that there's going to be other reasons as well. So Rabba bar Rav Shila Amar Atya mi paraduma. So the first one that we actually was lemaskana was eglarufa. Second one paraduma. The Torah tells us v'shachaf v'saraf. You're going to slaughter it and then you burn it. Just like the shchita has to be done when it's shalem, so to you burn it when it's going to be shalem. Now the question is, again, maybe it's going to be a trefa. So we go after the majority. Now you're going to tell me my nafkamina. Says no, chatat kare rachmana. You called it a chatat. Just like the chatat has to be not a trefa, so to the paraduma has to be not a trefa. Yeah, again, we didn't push this off as well. So this is the second place where we learn that we go after rov al ruba delete kaman. Another place. Ravach Bar Yaakov Amar Atya Ma'aseira Mishaleach. We're going to learn from Seira Mishaleach. Terachman Amar that the Torah tells us V'lakach Shnei Aseirim Shiyu Shneim Shavim. They both have to be exactly equal. You remember they have to be equal in the size, in the the koma, right, and everything. V'lechush says the Gemara. What do we suspect? Yudalafum bet 11b. V'lechush din machad minayu trefahu. Maybe one of them is going to be a trefa. Remember, what do you do with Seira Mishaleach? You throw it off the cliff. How do you know if it was a trefa? Mimila, the one that was brought to the mizbeach. Fine, maybe that one. But this one's throwing off the cliff. How do you know? Maybe one of them is going to be a trefa. Yeah, but it's still a trefa though. Exactly, you can't check it. It's a trefa. So no, for sure not. Maybe, yeah, because maybe before it was already a trefa, not afterwards. Afterwards, for sure, it's going to become a trefa. It's going to become limbs and pieces and everything. You're not going to know anything. Yeah? So he says, because we go after Ruba. If you're going to ask me, what do you care? My nafkamina. He says, no. Meaning, when you're going to come and you're going to be kovea, it's only going to be kovea if they're both going to be not trefa. Because if not, then the one that was for the shem doesn't work either. And if you're going to tell me about kinale, you check it. It used to become limbs until it gets halfway down the mountain. So if halfway down the mountain it becomes limbs and limbs, how in the world are you going to check if it was a terefa or not? Yeah? Okay. So therefore, obviously, we go after the rov. Again, there's another one. So one more time. We brought olah, pushed it off. We brought, after the olah, we brought the Pesach, Shvirat Atzamot on Pesach, pushed it off. After Shvirat Atzamot on Pesach, we brought before the paraduma, we brought the aliyah, the tail, we pushed it off. Then we started the ones which actually stayed halacha l'maaseh. Egla rufa, paraduma, and seir lazazel. Okay, next one. Rav Mari Amar, Atya, you're going to learn it from Makeh avi ve'imo. If you hit your father and your mother, what does that mean? The Torah says we kill you. And the question is, maybe it's not your father. Maybe it's not your father. Kabish? Maybe it's not your father. So it's lav mishum because we go after the rov. Rov bilot acharabal. The majority of the times, right? Who has the relations with the wife? The husband. So therefore, even if it is that she did cheat or whatever it is, the majority of the times it goes after the husband. So therefore, it's a rov. So we go after rov. The letter kaman says, "How do you know? Maybe they were both stuck in jail. And since they were both stuck in jail, that's why you know that it was them." Answers the Gemara, he says, even if you're going to be in jail, he says, how do you know that she wasn't, she didn't have relations with the shomer, with the guard, right? How do you know? Right? So because of that, obviously we go after the rov. Meaning the fact that if a person hits the father and he gets killed, it's only because of rov that the father is a rov his father. Okay, next answer. Rav Kahana Amar, Atya, we're going to learn it from Me'oreget Nefesh. If he commits murder. The Torah says, Katle, kill him. Says maybe it was a trefa. This guy came and he killed someone. Maybe that guy that he killed was going to die anyway within the year. Because we have to go. No, so therefore he's not chayav. If a person kills a terefa, it's a sur, but they don't get killed for it because they killed a person that was dead anyway. So it says the Gemara, but rather it's because we have to go after the rov. What does that mean? Yeah, we go after rov. So he says here, and they're going to say they checked him. He says, "Come in veil." Well, you're actually going to check him? Imagine somebody just murdered him. Now you're going to start doing an autopsy and start checking the entire body. Hakam in avel. V'chitim, and if you're going to tell me mishum yibud neshama, yeah, but it's mishum neshama. V'nechel shem bimkom saif nekavava. Maybe exactly where he killed him with the sword. That's exactly where he had the hole, right? So again, it's because of what? Because of the rov majority, right? Ruba deleta kaman. Another one, Ravina Amar Atya medim zomim from medim zomim. Tamar Achwana, the pasuk says vasidnu kasher zamam. So says the Gemara, maybe the one that they were testifying about him was a trefa. That means they're going to kill the guy, but they didn't check the other guy that he was be'emet thing. So he says it's because we go after rov. And if you're going to tell me we check him, only if they didn't kill them, that's when they're going to be killed. If they already killed them, this we learned on the first daf. You remember hargu and then again. What does that mean? If they actually killed the guy, the edim zomin don't get killed. Atamin. So obviously it's because we go after rov, right? And rov people are not trefot. Ravashi comes and he says, "Shchita." We learn it from shchita itself. Tamar Achmana, the pasuk says, "Shachot ve'echol." Do shechita and eat. V'lechu shema b'mkom nekev chashachit. Maybe you're doing the shechita exactly where there was a hole, and we go after the rov, right? But now on this one we push it off on the shchita. Amar Ravashi. Amrita lishmata kamed Rav Kana. We said in front of Kana. Amrita Rav Kana kamed Shemi. He said, he said, "V'dima echad efshad efshad echad efshad efshad." He says only where it's efshad you could do it. If it's not efshad lo efshad, what does that mean? Only if it's efshad levarure you should do it. But if it's efshad levarure, how are you going to do it? Diilo temahachi. Because if you don't say that, according to Rabbi Meir, that he says chayshel miuta, hachanami never eat meat. Why? Check, because it's a miut. Remember, Rabbi Meir was always choshesh miuta for the minority. So according to Rabbi Meir, never eat meat. You would always have to check it. Maybe you're going to say achanam, yes. He says Pesach, the kochim. What are you going to say for the korban Pesach or kochim? Ela hechad efshar efshar lo efshar. Hachanam is to do the same thing. Hechad efshar efshar lo efshar lo efshar. Okay, what does that mean? Basically, whenever you're able to check, you're obligated to check. Whenever you're not obligated to check, you're not obligated to check. In the